Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of Udacity's Learning Lab podcast. My name is Kelly Johnson. I'm the Director of Content and SEO at Udacity. Joining me today is Dennis Schultz, the Executive Director of the Blacks in Technology Foundation. And Dennis and I are going to talk about something that's top of mind for many corporations and global communities, which is increasing diversity, specifically in tech. And the Blacks in Technology Foundation is working to create opportunities for underrepresented individuals and communities to not only get jobs in tech, but to thrive in the industry. So Dennis, thank you for joining us today and welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. Go VT, go Virginia Tech. So let's start with a little bit about you. Tell me a little bit about yourself and how you became the Executive Director of the Blacks in Technology Foundation.
Sure. I'll give you the abridged version because my background is wide and varied. And though I seem youthful, I am an old man. I've been doing the IT thing for over 25 years now. I started primarily working with IT manufacturers. So I've been with APC, which is the first job I had out of college, and we were doing battery backups, UPSs for data centers, migrated to software, worked with Seagate software and Veritas software. And I won't give you the, every place I've stopped, but I've worked for some big brands, Dell, Lenovo, Samsung, Dropbox, Gardner,
Wow.
Rackspace. I'm currently at HPE. The executive director role that I currently hold within Blacks in Technology is really one that was born out of volunteerism. I attended a conference in 2018 and I was struck by, how many Black folks in tech there were because, quite frankly, I didn't see that many, Black techies in my daily dealings, working 9 to 5. So I wanted to get back to New York and join the chapter. And I asked the founder, Greg, I said, hey, how do I join the New York City chapter? He said, there is not one. He said, if you want, you can run it. And I was
wow.
Okay, that's not really what I was asking for, but all right, let's do it. So I kind of, back-paced my way into that role. Now New York has, I think, over 1,300 members in the New York City chapter alone.
Okay.
And, as we've decided to expand and grow, we realized that we needed some top-down leadership. And Greg, was gracious enough to tap me as the executive director. And I've had this role since late summer of 2020.
That's amazing. So it sounds like you were voluntold for the position rather than volunteered for the position.
Something like that. It was mutual interest. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't have accepted if I didn't have a passion for it and didn't think I could, be effective. But it definitely wasn't something I was, actively seeking. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So it sounds like you've had this long storied career in tech. When was the first moment when you realized that underrepresentation was an issue and needed to be addressed? Was it when you entered the Blacks in Technology Foundation, or was it something that you had always kind of spotted in your career?
Oh, yeah. Very, very early on. So APC is headquartered in Rhode Island. And Rhode Island isn't a very diverse state as it is. But then when you kind of, pile on, the tech industry, it kind of shrinks the networking a little bit more. So I noticed in my organization, there was diversity in gender, but not in ethnicity. I was typically the only person on my teams. There were no Black executives. There was no Black leadership. And, that's not to fault APC because APC was a great company and still is doing great things under, with Schneider Electric. But there just wasn't diversity. And then when I got into field sales, which was ultimately where that role led me, there wasn't much diversity even in New York City. Which I was expecting, because I was like, okay, New York, the melting pot, I'm going to be, surrounded by people of different ethnicities and it's going to just, bleed diversity, but that wasn't necessarily the case. So,
yeah. Oh, well, I mean, great that you recognize that. And it's surprising, right? I could see why you would be surprised. I had the same experience when I moved to San Francisco and started working in tech. I thought it would be a lot of people, a lot of diverse backgrounds, but I started to quickly realize that I was one of only, or one of a few in certain tech roles. So it was jarring, but definitely room to grow in terms of increasing representation in tech. So what's been, speaking either professionally with your current role or as the ED at the Blacks in Technology Foundation, what's been the biggest challenge to increasing diversity in the tech industry?
That is a tough question, and I don't know if I have the right answer to this. Just one man's opinion,
right?
But what I will tell you is that there's definitely a common denominator that I see, and I talk to a lot of organizations, and most of them have good intentions and want to increase diversity. Know that there's a problem, but just haven't figured out how to accomplish the goal of increase diversity within the organization. So I think there's a lack of accountability in a lot of respects because, quite frankly, if it's not broke, why are you trying to fix it with respect to the business operations? Companies are making money, things are flowing, projects are getting completed,
Why
it's
change anything?
It's an extra thing to do. In most cases. And if you're not intentional, or if you don't have top-down leadership that's driving it, then you kind of default back to, what's worked in the past. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge to diversity.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I could see why if it's not broke, don't fix it methodology or line of thinking seeping into corporations. But I think now that, especially in light of the Black Lives Matter movement and the events of 2020 and just fervor and conversation around social unrest, they can't afford to not pay attention to it. So leading into my next question, which is, how does the Blacks in Technology Foundation help increase diversity today?
Yeah, so that's a good one. I do have an answer for that one. So the way that we're looking at it is there's two ways to tackle the problem. I mean, obviously there's a lack of people entering into the tech space, from diverse backgrounds. So we see the pipeline of, Black employees, just coming in and choosing tech as an industry is the first challenge. So we provide programs and resources to on-ramp and onboard and get those folks who may be either unemployed or underemployed to look at tech as a way to find a family sustainable wage, right? By doing something that they might not have considered in the past. Everybody thinks that you have to be a computer whiz or a math genius to, make a living in tech or to earn a lot of money. That's totally not the case. I'm living proof. I'm not a technical person. I'm technical enough. But there's definitely roles out there that require, no 4-year degree. And we, want to exploit that. And then also roles that don't require you to be super technical, project management or sales, so those are some of the things that we want to, obviously evangelize and promote. Additionally, there are some folks who are already in tech, they, made it and they're in. And we want to help those folks move up into, senior management, executive management, and ultimately board seats. So we have programs specifically geared towards those folks. And the community that we've developed, is really strong with respect to mentorship and networking and creating a sense of camaraderie within our tech space. So that's kind of how we're tackling the issue.
That's awesome. And I'm a proud member of the Blacks in Technology Foundation. So I'm looking forward to taking some of those courses, classes, opportunities to move up in my career. So I'll be letting you know how that goes, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Good luck.
But I wanted to piggyback off of the pipeline statement that you made, because when we talk about diversity or increasing representation in tech, sometimes the senior leadership team at various companies might fall back on it's a pipeline problem statement. So what's your answer to people that say, there's a lack of representation, diversity in tech because there's just not enough people that can take on those roles. There's a pipeline issue.
Yeah, and to me, that is a cop-out answer in a lot of ways, because there's there's more than 3 million open roles right now in tech.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And there's not enough, H-1B visas. There's not enough computer science degrees to fill those roles, globally. So, yes, there's a challenge to find any talent.
Right.
If you have a software engineer, rec open, if you're a company, you're going to struggle to find that person to fill that role. So I think by saying that there's a pipeline problem is, like I said, it's a little bit of a cop-out. What we want to try to do is say, okay, well, if that's the problem and you believe or perceive that there's a pipeline issue, then why don't you widen your lens and look at some folks that have non-traditional backgrounds. Right. So, the 4-year college degree requirement is one of those things that, anytime I'll get in front of a microphone or a platform like this, I always say, if you still have that as a requirement and you're hiring for IT in an organization, you need to, seriously reconsider what your policy is and why it exists. Because there are some really strong and capable folks out there who, with some, additional training, most of them may require some, additional massaging, but they have a certification or two and could do practitioner level work in your organization to get the end result, which is a functioning person, contributing to a business goal.
Absolutely.
That's what we want to ultimately get to. And if that's the goal, then, there's a lot of folks that could fill that role.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love the part you said about looking at non-traditional backgrounds. And I think that's a great point. And, looking to underrepresented groups to help fill those skills gaps, right? Because they're there, they have the ambition, they're hungry. Let's make sure that we have a great fit between what corporations need and what underrepresented groups have to offer. So totally fall in line with that. In that same vein, tell me a little bit about the Udacity and Blacks in Technology Scholarship Program and what you hope graduates will gain from this experience.
Yeah. So we are super excited about partnering with Udacity because it does two things, right? It gives those people who are, kind of on the outskirts trying to figure out, okay, I am working 2 jobs. I'm, trying to, navigate my day-to-day, just pay the bills and put food on the table. Right. But I know this is unsustainable. I know I can do more. I know I want to do more. Udacity is a program that doesn't require you to take 12 weeks and do a full-time boot camp. You can actually learn after work or on the weekends when you have time and complete your nano degree, receive those practitioner level skills that I mentioned, and hopefully get the visibility of companies who will want to hire you and actually move you from that low paying manual labor job into, what I call a white collar or, a gray collar job if it's entry level, get you out of that perpetual, just, going through the motions of paying the bills and into a really fundamentally life-changing, sustainable IT career.
Yeah, totally agree. And what I love about these programs and these scholarships are, like you said, getting those practitioner level skills that get you ready for your job, day one of your new job. So looking forward to seeing the graduates and seeing them make an impact in the tech community. So thanks for giving us that overview. So wanted to go back to diversity in the workforce, diversity in tech. Increasing diversity has been top of mind for many organizations since the rise and support for the Black Lives Matter movement. How can we keep increasing diversity top of mind for these organizations today and in the future? Because it was top of mind 2020, it's top of mind now. How do we make sure it stays there?
Yeah, and I've had this conversation with a number of Black tech organizations and leaders, and I think it's just going to be, I hate to say, we have to shame them into doing what they said they were going to do, but basically we need to keep accountability,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
So there were a number of companies who've pledged, to, funds or resources in the wake of the murder of George Floyd. And, to date, is I think the statistic I saw was 0.0005% of the money pledged was actually allocated, and we're running up on a year from when this. So, and there's, I don't think there's malice. I think there's just apathy and, maybe analysis paralysis. People are trying to determine exactly where to put money, how much money to put, who's going to be good stewards of said money. I love to have those conversations with executives who have budget but just aren't sure, because this is a program. Our scholarship program is something that they can put money into and actually see the benefit of that scholarship in something that they can benefit from ultimately.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's a double edge. It's a corporate responsibility, giving, philanthropy initiative. And also it's a practical recruiting and talent acquisition play because, in most cases, they can get right of first refusal on the folks that they put through the nano degree program. So if they need to hire and they're looking for diversity, hey, this is a great way to kill two birds with one stone.
Exactly. Totally agree. Along the same lines, talking about careers of the future, tech specifically, like jobs are changing so fast, skills are changing so fast. Which skills or jobs should people focus on to thrive in this industry?
Oh, yeah, this is another one I get asked a lot. Where do I go? And I always tell people it really depends on what you're good at, and there's some tools, and we're working on a tool to do some, personality assessments, some skills assessments, to, help people figure out, okay, what are my core skills and, inherently, what am I good at? Right. And then once you kind of figure that out, you may lean more towards, programming or coding. You may, lean more towards product management or project management. It may be, sales or business development. It could be a number of different things, but until you kind of figure out what it is you want to do and what it is you may be good at, it's kind of hard for me to say.
Right.
But I do have an opinion. So let me give you an answer. With that caveat, I will say that cybersecurity roles of any type are always going to be in demand for, the foreseeable future.
So the latest news cycle is a great example of that, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. There's definitely opportunities, for public sector, private sector. Cybersecurity is, probably, one of the top of mind for me. Software engineering is another one. Every company needs engineers to develop applications, to modify applications. And then also, I would say project management. People need to be able to efficiently get, ideas from ideation to the customer in a timely fashion, and somebody needs to coordinate and manage that process. So those are probably the top three skills that I see. And then anything that's going to be web or mobile and, edge, I can go on. But, if I had to limit it, I would say those three.
Awesome. I think that's a great list. Makes a lot of sense. And again, our recent news cycle around cybersecurity and hacks really underscores the need for professionals in that field. So I think it's going to be something that we'll probably need ongoing support for forever, as long as we continue to live in this internet age. So last question, parting thoughts for scholarship students, learners writ large. Like, what advice would you give someone from an underrepresented group who hasn't found their way into tech yet and wants to break in?
Yeah. I would say, well, first join Blacks in Technology. It's free to join, and it is something that provides immediate value for our members. So, I said it tongue in cheek, but seriously, it's definitely a resource for you. But secondly, I would say, understand what it is you want and work backwards. For me, I was motivated by money. I knew I wanted to make a certain amount of money, and I knew that there were certain roles that I could do that I felt comfortable with, that I could, make that amount of money doing. And then I figured out, okay, what do I need to do to get there?
Right.
So I kind of worked backwards from the number. And that worked out for me. But if your motivation isn't money, maybe it's flexibility, maybe it's freedom, maybe you want to work from home, maybe you want to wear shorts and jeans, to work every day, whatever it is, figure out exactly what is that motivation going to be for you, and then figure out a way to get there. There's a role for you in tech in any discipline or specialization. So I would say if you want to get in, there's a way for you to get in, and we'll provide you with guidance and resources if you're not sure where to start.
Yeah, I think that's great. And that's a great point. I think for me, when I was trying to get into tech, it was more or less a function of seeing the magazine industry when I was a journalist kind of wither away in the early aughts and trying to figure out a way to get into a new industry where I could continue to write, flex some journalistic muscle, but in a new industry, specifically tech. And it was terrifying at first, but like you said, working backwards from what you want. And for me, it was something that is future-proof, provides some career development, but also some income, right? Because San Francisco is expensive, the Bay Area is expensive, and you want to make a living wage. And the tech industry presented that. So I like what you said about working backward from your why and being able to put the first step forward there. So, well, we'll stop here. Dennis Schultz, Executive Director of the Blacks in Technology Foundation, thank you for joining us today on the latest edition of Udacity's Learning Lab podcast. We'll be back with new episodes soon. So thank you so much for joining and signing off here.